friends, welcome to Sunflower Hill. I'm Tina. I'm a single mum homesteading here in Victoria in Australia, in the southern part of Australia. And welcome today to the great Emporium episode, which I have been promising for so long. The Emporium is probably one of the biggest projects that I undertook when I got here. It's the main thing that I wanted to try out and wanted to play with and do. It's an idea I've had for a long time. And look, no ideas just pop into your head, apropos of nothing. So it has been in planning for a long time. And, you know, various things have come into helping me sort out my ideas about it too. So the guts of it, let me explain as we walk up, is that I wanted a low maintenance system where I could grow veggies and have chooks. And I wanted those chooks to be part of the system to reduce my workload and to make the soil more fertile and to perform a whole heap of functions, which, as permaculture tells us, is the way to go. The functions included clearing up bugs and pests, like cleaning up pests, clearing weeds after I finished growing in a run, fertilizing and pooing and scratching the runs, and therefore acting as nutrient recyclers. You can have a look at the video, I'll link it down below, that I did recently on the chickens and the jobs that they do for me. But those are some of the things that they do. So the point was to have a system where I would have to do minimal work, and the chooks would get what they need, and the plants would get what they need from the chooks as much as possible. Of course, this is an artificial system. We're not in nature here, and I'm wanting to get maximum food for myself and my kids from these gardens. So I'm not just completely leaving it up to nature, obviously. I am having to put inputs in as well in terms of basically my own work and some bought things. That was the plan. Obviously, all plans have their positives and their negatives, and it's impossible to tell exactly how things are going to go until you actually do it and try it out. So this is something that has been a bit trial and error. The basic structure has been amazing. I've used the basic structure to add to it and to change things to make it work better along the way. I had to add a roof, a netting roof, because birds of prey were killing my chooks in there. So I added a netting roof. That was actually quite easy. It wasn't super cheap, but not the most expensive thing either. I used pond netting, and then I bought it in a 25 by 25 metre square and literally pulled it over the top. Now let's go and have a look, and I can explain how I built everything. This is not going to be a short video, so settle down with a cuppa, a snack, whatever, make yourselves comfortable, because I'm going to do some explaining here, and I'm also going to explain how you might be able to modify it for your own use, or use some of the ideas to, you know, modify the setups that you already have. Now behind me you can see there's a few bits and pieces. There's a lot going on at the moment. My gardens are being changed around a fair bit, fencing's being pulled out, all that sort of stuff. So it's a work in progress and in motion at the moment. Now I'm going to flip the camera around and you can see the Emporium. Let's go and have a look and let's talk about it. Okay, so here we have the Emporium. It's really hard to get an idea of the size and scale of the thing from the outside, but it is 18 metres long along its length and 12 metres wide along the front and back. So it's a huge rectangle. At the moment, if you watched my previous video, you would see that I've been planting in, or we, the kids helped me, have been planting into this first run here. And that is part of the Emporium. So here we are walking along the east side of the whole construction. This shed here is part of the Emporium. This is the chickens' nesting shed, and along the back there is a secure run where I can lock them up if I go away and if I feel that foxes are a threat, which they have not been. They've only been once, and it was something that I fixed very quickly. Okay, this is the front of the Emporium, and this is where some of the design stuff comes in. I have 4 runs. 1, 2, 3, 4. Each of the runs has a door in it, and these, as you can see, are reused, upcycled, whatever. They're just reused as the same thing that they originally intended for, which is a door. So I'm just going to go with reused old screen doors. I was given these for free. These are often, when they're in, they're very old and then they're a bit ugly, they're often given away for free on buy, swap, sell groups, that sort of thing. And I just got these for free. Somebody had them sitting around. So each of these doors has its own separate doors. So each of these runs has its own separate entrance. I've also planted trees along the front. This is a plum tree. And there's an apple and a pear tree there. They have been battered by summer. The pear tree's almost leafless, so yeah, you'll have to excuse that. You'll also have to excuse these. Pallets have been pulled out. They were serving as a roost in there for the chickens. They've been pulled out. They're going up to the burn pile for winter and when it's safe to burn off again. This here is the west end. So the whole thing runs north to south. If I'd had my time again, I actually would have built it a little bit closer to the house, because you can see there's a bit of a hill, or a fair hill. The house is way down there, and there's a fair bit of hill up to the Emporium. Not a lot closer. I just would have moved it forward. If I could just magically pick it up and move it forward 3 or 4 meters, I would do that. The main reason is because then there would be a gap between the back of the Chicken Emporium and the neighbour's paddock. However, I have obviously put up the great big fence, my great wall of privacy and peace along here anyway. So it probably really doesn't matter anymore, but it would have saved a bit of time. Again, here's works in progress. That tin has blown down in a bit of wind. I need to pick that up because I don't want snakes getting under there. Lots of work in progress and lots of mistakes along the way. So this video is not just about how I built the Emporium and how well it's working. It's also about the mistakes I made and how I'm fixing those. And one of those mistakes was planting boysenberries along the perimeter and thinking, oh, I'll just keep those in hand. Oh no, boysenberries are not like that. Boysenberries are like this. Boysenberries are extremely vigorous and they can be invasive. So if you grow them, they are absolutely brilliant fruits. And now I've got to pull out tin and boysenberries. So it's all in progress. Now that the weather has cooled, I have started working really hard on the place and making progress. This here is a really huge, another thing I would suggest being careful of planting. It's a leftover from my eco printing and fabric dyeing days. It's goldenrod. Around here it can be invasive, and you can see it is somewhat invasive. When the ground is softer, I will pull out anything that's encroaching on this area here, this orchard area. So I will keep it contained. The beauty of it is that the stems are really easy to break. It's sort of it's quite a soft sort of stemmed plant, easy to pull out, easy to break, no spikes and spines, unlike the boysenberries. And a really good dye plant. So I will do some videos on dyeing. I really should use them while I've got the flowers. I just don't have a lot of time at the moment. So that's the side of the Emporium here. And this is the run that I've wound up using as a summer growing run, this first one along here. The runs are about between 2.5 and 3 meters wide. I didn't measure things. I probably would now if I did it again, but I didn't at the time. So alongside the Emporium, there's a grove of trees. These trees are to create shade. There was absolutely nothing here. There was no protection. The wind from the northwest from that direction is just full on. So I've planted trees for protection and shade. They're mostly the black wattles, the Acacia Mearnsii that I have mentioned before. They're really, really good succession plants. I can't think of the word. I'll put it on the screen. They're really good first trees to put in. These guys here are for dye again, and again I'll include those in another video, but these are eucalyptus cinerea, which give a really rich reddish dye. And there are fruit trees here. The whole point of this area is to be an orchard, but I've just got a few trees and trying to look after those at the moment. There's Gracie. Hello, Gracie. Hello, Gracie. This construction here is, and you can see that the fruit trees are really, really hated that long, hot summer. Very dry. I definitely watered up here a lot, but it was very hard to keep up with that. This construction here is a climbing frame for my kids in progress. Okay, so before we go in, I'm just going to talk about what the point of this whole thing was and why I did it this way. And I will include a little bit of a history on it. So it was a lot of work. It's huge. And that's why I'm talking about, you know, adapting this for your own needs. Not everybody has, like, this is the size of most people's backyards. If you're not on a farm. If you're on a farm, you've got the space, you can do this. But this is enormous, and not everybody will want to have something this huge. I totally get that, but you can scale this down to still be of use. What I wanted was something that had multiple runs. Basically, it's a way of, of using chickens in a rotational system. So this is the first run here, and this is where I'm growing my summer veggies at the moment. As soon as this is finished, I will open the gate up the end and I'll let the chooks in. The run that the chooks are in at the moment, see, this is where I'm struggling to know where to start in telling this story. But what I'm going to do is definitely go back to the beginning. I started this in, we moved up here in, I think, 2017, me and the kids. And I started doing this in, it would have been 2018. I was struggling to, deal with a whole heap of challenges that this place presented at the time. So it took a while. And finding the resources and the money to do this also took a while. So it's constructed out of these posts here. These are the bedrock of this. And I will show you some photos of the construction. I'm definitely going to do that at some point in this video. So it's constructed primarily, number one, out of these posts here. These are cypress, and I found a local person who mills them much, much cheaper than the usual costs. These are 2.4 meters and they're in the ground about 70 centimeters. I wanted something that I could walk into and not have to bend down, because I really, really hate chicken things. I've just had so many years. I rented for 28 years before I bought this place. This is my first and probably only home that I've been able to own in my life. So I wanted to do everything the way I wanted it and the way I had thought about for years. And I was absolutely sick of awful rental places where everything I did had to be temporary, and the chicken things I had were unpleasant, where I had to bend my head down, where I had to get in there to clean them. It was ugly and uncomfortable, bending my back, and I wanted something that I could walk into. So on top of those posts, even though this has a roof now, the netting, on top of those posts there are arches, and I just made the original arches out of, and you can see why I say the original arches here, out of this poly pipe. Now I've fixed most of these, but the poly pipe has, of course, problems in that it is just not very strong, and it has sagged a lot. This post here as you can see, is wobbly because it has actually broken down the bottom, which has not happened in any of the other to any of the other posts. So come and have a look at the shed. This shed here is actually part of the Emporium. So it has a door that opens to here, to the outside, and it has a door that opens into the Emporium. So you can access it from both sides. My plan with the whole thing was to have everything I need to access, all the different sections, accessible from the outside as well as from within the Emporium, everything accessible to each other. So this door, it's not very high tech. You can see it's just held, it's just ropes, but it's pretty good. It seems to work. The rope's good, good enough for now. Again, it's that sort of thing where I've done things to be functional, and as time goes on, I'll improve on them and I'll do nicer stuff. But at the moment, that's very functional. So this has two doors. The reason for that is that the outer door is completely, it's an old security door again, and it allows airflow. The inner door, this one here, in there, the shed door, blocks off airflow completely, so that in winter when it's cold, I can close that inner door and it's nice and cozy in there. Whereas in summer when it's warm, obviously I leave the inner door open or partially open, and then it's still locked by this door. And I wanted to have that flexibility because it can get awfully hot in a shed over summer, and if a chook's in there, especially if they're broody or sitting on a nest on eggs, they're not going to want to leave. So it's absolutely crucial to have airflow to avoid them getting too hot in there. All right, we might go back inside the Emporium now and I'll take you for a tour through it. After that, I will put together a montage for you of older footage and older photos so that you can get an overview of the building process, because it gives you a clearer idea of how I got to this point. So for now, let's go back inside and we'll have a look at how everything's constructed in there and how everything works together. Let's go. Okay, so if you want to come a little bit closer and have a look how I've done these enclosures on the gates, the doors are literally just screen doors. The interrupting roosters are in full flow this afternoon. These are literally screen doors, and where they still had, usually they still had hinges, and I literally just screwed them onto the posts with the hinges that they already had on them. So they're really nice and easy to open and shut. And all I've done for closures is a piece of wood with a screw in it. And so this is very easy. You just put that down and it's super secure, and it's just really quick and easy. Really quick, easy closure. So that's something anyone can do. All right, let's pop in here and have a look. Okay, so this is the first of the runs. I number them from 1 to 4, and the only reason for that, or the top to the bottom, the only reason for that is just easy reference if I ask one of the kids to come in and do something for me, or to take something to one of the runs, then we know what we're talking about basically. Now right behind the camera there, do you want to just turn around and show that, is my polytunnel, and that's one that's the first one. There's going to be 2 of those, but the main use for that is going to be growing things like this eggplant in pots. So this extends the growing season. for things like eggplants, capsicum, etc., because it's a very unpredictable kind of climate here, and you'll get heat and then you'll get cold and wet, and it's a bit all over the place, whereas this keeps it more constant. And that's the first eggplant I've had off this, and I've just moved it up here, so it's obviously happy. You can see it's got some sooty mould and white flies and all sorts of things on it, but it's just late in the season. Once that's grown what it's going to grow, I will cut that back. But I don't generally do too much with pests like that really late in the season when the leaves are starting to lose their vitality anyway. Yep. I also just have hooks just made of wire on the inside of these doors, and I just hook them on there for when I'm on the inside so you don't get locked in. All right, so this is the first run, and these runs are about 3 metres wide by around 18 metres long. In fact, I think the whole thing is 20 metres. It's 20 metres long by 12 metres wide, and the reason for that is that each of these, there's 4 runs. I'll put a mud map, I'll draw a mud map and put that in the screen for you so you can get an idea of the actual layout of it, but also the making of it, which will come up in a minute, will give you an idea, a much better idea of how it was laid out, because now that it's done, it's harder to see. Let's go up here. This also makes it harder to see the layout, but this 50% shade cloth I have put on afterwards, after I finished it. This is super important. It gives a lot of protection to the plants that I grow under here, and it actually extends the growing season. Surprisingly, it keeps a bit of extra warmth in, as well as blocking out the worst of the sun in summer, because Australian sun is very hardcore, so it's too much even for veggies. All right. Now this spot here shows you how I've constructed it. So these posts are cypress, and they were milled by a local man who just does, has a mill, just a private mill. And I explained in the other run that these are 2.4 metres long and in the ground about 70 centimetres. So the entire outside of the Emporium is done with these. The inner runs, the dividers between the runs that turned it from a great big rectangle into a series of 4 runs, are just made with long star pickets. So I literally bashed them in and attached the wire. Now, the wire I've used is very heavy duty chicken mesh. The reason, obviously, this is just separating the chooks. This isn't a safety issue. Why would you use such heavy duty mesh? The reason I use such heavy duty mesh is that I want this to last. I do not want to be having to repair, crumbling or rather rusting mesh at any point. I want this to last 30 years, 40 years. I'm not getting any younger, and I don't need to be constantly having to repair things. So I used really heavy duty, good quality stuff. The star pickets should last for, their steel should last for a long time. And so the same with the cypress posts. That's why I chose cypress. And also the reason I chose the cypress posts was because they're not treated. So treated pine posts are treated with arsenic, copper, and I'll put it on the screen. I'm having a mental blank, which you may not particularly want in your veggie growing area. Old treated pine posts that have probably leached away most of their crap are maybe okay to use. That's a decision you can make for yourself. But I liked the idea of the cypress. They should have quite a long life in the ground, and they were very, very affordable. So all the way around the outside was done with cypress. So I was very fortunate. Some friends came up with a mechanical post hole digger, or a runs on diesel or something, a post hole digger, and helped me dig all of the holes. I feel like there was 35. And we did all of that in an afternoon. I remember they got here at about 2 o'clock, and we got all of those post holes, the holes dug for these posts. Digging 35, 70 centimetre holes by hand would have taken a lot longer. So they kindly came and helped me with that. So that was done, the holes were done in a day. Again, oh, the neighbours have their tractor feeding the cattle. Again, if I could go back and have my time again and do it again, I would probably concrete them in. And if anybody else is doing it, I would suggest use some concrete. I just put them in with gravel, but they're fine. They're sturdy, you know, they're not going anywhere. They're very sturdy. So let's go and have a look up here, how I've done this bit up here. I've had to use this bird netting to stop the chooks just jumping over. They are a lot more annoying with that than I anticipated. So the way I've designed it was to have a space up here where the chooks always can access, and that lock-up run that they always can access. But these 4 runs that I've broken it into, each of them has a, you're able to block it at the top, has a gate at the top. Again, I really need to do that properly, and it's all a bit reactive, some of it. Now I'm getting a tractor noise. But basically I've blocked every run at the top, can be opened into this main area here, and every run can be shut from the top as well, blocked off. So it means that I can grow food in here and keep the chickens out, and then when the food is finished growing, I can let the chooks back in and they will clean up the bugs and the plants and weeds and things like that. So it makes it flexible, and it's why it works. It's why it works to grow veggies together with chickens when you can rotate. Now this is just a permanent version of any other kind of rotational system. Other people might use a chicken tractor. Other people might use a chicken tractor, so you'll move it around. For me, that's not a really practical option because I don't like the idea of having to lift and move something around all the time, especially because I'm on my own. I guess the kids could help now, but when I first moved up here, they were really little, and they're not here every single day, and they will grow up. So I'm thought of the future as well as the present when I made this place. So that's how the runs are divided. They're all a little bit different, and the reason for that was this now rather falling apart trampoline. I am going to fix this. I'll put just shade over the top of it. I put this in here temporarily because there wasn't enough shade over summer, and the chooks just love it. So I just ended up leaving it here because they love it. So it's taken a couple of meters off these 2 middle runs, but that's okay because honestly they're really long. It's a lot of growing space when you're just growing for your own kids, you know, and yourself. It's a lot of growing space. So these 2 runs here are blocked off a little bit further down, so they're actually a little bit shorter. Now you can see this one is blocked off down here instead of up the top there, but it gives a nice area. This is the second run, and we've seen in here before, but let's have a look at how the chooks have cleaned it up. Hi guys, thanks for your work in here. So the chooks have been in here for, oh gosh, how long? Maybe 3 or 4 months, and they have cleaned everything up beautifully. I'm just noticing that there's broad beans coming up from last year's broad beans, so that's good. You can see what I've done to separate the runs. What I've done to separate the runs is just put these posts in, which I had. They were just posts that were lying around. These I put through the middle, and I just dug holes by hand and put them in myself. They're pretty sturdy, so obviously did a good job. I just packed the gravel down around the base of them in the hole with a a stomper. My dad used to call it a stomper. It's like a long crowbar thing with a knob on the end of it that you bash things in with. Oh, I'm very distracted today. The dog's barking, the neighbours are going in and out. It's all happening. So I put these posts in myself, and a trick with getting posts in, if you're doing it yourself by hand, is to make the hole not too much bigger than the post itself, because that gives you the most secure fit and you have the least amount of work to do to pack it in and get it to set solid again. And again, you can see I've used really heavy duty chicken mesh. This is not the cheap crappy stuff. I actually happened to get this from a place in Mount Gambier, which just once a year buys it in some sort of bulk order and sells it really cheap. Well, cheaply for what it is. It still costs a bit, but it's cheap for what it is. And this should last for a very long time. This is also what's around the outside of the Emporium as well. It's sort of easier to tell how I did this in the making of. So when I put that compilation of photos and video together, you should have a better idea of how we did all this. I say we, it was me. The kids helped with things like putting these clips on. The kids did a few things like that to help, which was, you know, every bit helps. Absolutely every bit helps. But yeah, this was a lot of very, very hard physical work, and it took me 2 years to do it. I did most of it on my own or with quite little kids helping. So while I did the middle with those pine posts, because I just happened to have them, I can't remember where I got them, but they were already here. I did these other runs, the top and bottom, so there's 3, of course, fences to divide it into 4, and the others I did with these star pickets as I showed you before. So let's go back up this run. I am actually filming this a couple of days later because my microphone ran out of charge. So this looks like a horrible mess, but it's actually just what the chooks have done. I'll close it up, tidy up the rest of the bits and pieces like this. This is an awful lot of radish seeds. So radishes are one of the things that I'll just let this self-seed, and that will probably just come up. They can eat those. They love radish. Radish greens, something that chickens really enjoy. This, I had peas growing on this. I'll just pull this out and move that. So this is from the top looking down. That's the run that I was in just the other day, when my son was filming me, very helpfully filming me talking about the first run. And here is an open area that has this trampoline in the middle of it. The trampoline was meant to be a temporary measure because the whole structure didn't have much shade in it that first summer when I put the chooks in. So I put this trampoline here again because it was something I got for free. But the chooks love it. Even with the other things I've now done for them, they love this trampoline. So I've actually left it for them. So this, you can see that this run comes up here, whereas the second and third runs stop down there behind the trampoline. The fourth run also comes right up here. It comes right up to the end, and in fact that's sort of the end of that part of the Emporium. There's a lock-up run that goes along here, and I'll show you that in a moment. But for now, this area here actually serves a useful function. I deliberately didn't bring all of the runs up here because I wanted to be able to access them from here and block them off as needed. So at the moment, this first run here is blocked off. That's where we did our planting in the most recent video a week or 2 ago. This is where they've been eating. So this is last winter's crops, the rest of them that they've cleaned up. They're still getting bits and pieces out of that, so that's fantastic. Then we have this open area here. It's the trampoline, which they just like. I think it's not just shade, but I think they feel really protected and sheltered under there. And in this area as well, I have the IBC with their automatic feeder in there with their grain in it. So they can always access that no matter what run they're in. All of the runs, all 4 of the runs, 1, 2, 3, and 4, all open into this central area here. And so regardless of which run they're in, the run that's open to them will have a gate open into this area, and so they can always access that trampoline for shade, and they can always access their grain. Now, I did used to have their feeder for grain in a different spot, which I'm about to show you in a moment, but I found that it encouraged rats. So I moved it out here, and I haven't had any problem with mice and rats. The feeder itself is automatic, and it does exclude rodents very well, really well. I showed you guys that in the chicken video, in the jobs for the chickens. So if you want a bit more of a detail about the feeder I use, have a look down the bottom. I will link that video down below. It probably looks messy, but this hangy stuff here is bird netting, which I've had to use to stop them jumping over, because they get up onto the trampoline and then they jump over and they eat all my baby veggies. That's the same with this netting here, this bird netting. Sometimes you have to do things retrospectively, because I didn't think they would get over this, and most of them don't, but it only takes 1 or 2 to get in to, you know, destroy all your little baby seedlings or whatever crop you've got coming along. They just have to get in and, you know, get into the tomatoes, and you don't have any. All right, so this 3rd run here has not been used for growing anything so far, because and again, it's a matter of trying things out and figuring out as you go what works, because this this whole area is really too big for what I need. Not too big as in, oh, I shouldn't have done it this big, I wish I had made it smaller, because that would be easy. I could just, you know, use part of it for something else. But too big as in, I don't need, you know, all 4 runs to grow my veggies, and actually more than I don't need the 4 runs, I actually can't manage that much and look after it. So the conclusion I've come to more recently is that this run here, number 3, and that one there, number 2, are now just going to exclusively grow food for my chooks. This one still has grass in it, because, as I said, I haven't improved this. The others have had a lot of work put into them. They've had a lot of lucerne hay, and the grass has been, you know, either pulled out or flattened, you know, with solid mulch, pieces of steel, things like that, roofing iron, things like that. I've used over winter, of course. It's dangerous with snakes in summer, but I've used things like that in the food growing runs to get rid of the grass and improve it for growing. So each year it's a little bit easier and a little bit better to get things started in there. You can see the tomatoes are just finishing off in there. But this particular one here that we're in, the soil has not been improved at all. I've done nothing to it. And the chickens have selected for the very few things that they won't eat, which is this plantain weed here and this really wiry sort of grass. I mean, they'll pick at it for greens. Certainly you can see the tops of the grass has been picked off by the chickens when they want some greens. But they much prefer things like these old brassicas in here, and the radishes, peas, all the sorts of things I grow when I'm actually growing veggies. They much prefer to eat those. This looks like a mess, this here. I can, you know, totally acknowledge some of this looks messy, but this shelter here has been, as you can see, there's chooks underneath there, and it just provides an extra bit of shelter for them if it's raining or whatever. They've just got somewhere to quickly go. There is an old banana lounge behind there, which was part of that. Again, just on the fly, something needed to be done. I needed to provide shelter for, you know, for the chooks for various reasons. And so that's going to be removed and taken to the tip, that banana lounge there. However, I have been without a tow bar on my car for about a year now. So taking anything to the tip has been impossible. So that's going to be done very soon. As soon as that's done, I'll be able to take, I'll be able to pick up straw and hay and timber and take things to the tip and all sorts of stuff. So these 2 pallets here are just a little perch. So this is all a work in progress. This will all be taken out. This will go to the tip, and this little humpy shelter here will be moved very soon, very, very soon. So this humpy shelter here, this is half a water tank, and it has actually been really good. The chooks use it a lot. It's an extra shelter. And when you've got a lot of chickens, having an extra shelter for them is really helpful, because there's not just a pecking order, but there's complex social things with chickens, and some will pick on other chooks. So you want to have, if you've got a group of them, it's really good to have a few separate shelters or separate areas where they can get out of the rain and they can get out of the sun and they can lay their eggs without being picked on by the other chickens. So that's the purpose this shelter serves. It's not their primary shelter at all, and it is going to be moved up here. So up here is our communal area, basically. In here is the communal area that you can see. So over the next few weeks, I will be bringing in some gravel and filling in this whole area here. I'll straighten up this feeder box here, and I'll move the humpy up here, sit it all nicely on gravel, because chooks really like to dig, and that's what they've done here. That's why you can see there's holes and lumps everywhere, and it's also why I've decided to turn that run we just came out of into a chicken feed run, because they've just really made a mess of this. It was just a run that was always open to them, but it's not really of much benefit to them at the moment. They've just turned it into a bit of an area with a few weeds and thin grass, and they're not getting a lot out of it. So I'm going to do that. So this whole area here that all the runs open onto will have this nice little feeder, old IBC, turned into a feeding station, and it will have that second shelter humpy just here somewhere. I'll have to, probably the other way around, probably the humpy over there and the feeder here, so I can still open this gate here. This gate is the entrance, the interior entrance to run number 4, which is the summer run, which I've showed you a bit earlier in this video. And this door here is the entrance into the lock-up area. So that's the next bit that we're going to have a look at. I will have put a mud map in by now, and the mud map will give you an idea of where we actually are. So this bit along here is the very top of the emporium. The shed there is not actually physically part of the rectangle. It juts out from the end. And I showed you before, we can access that from the outside via those ropes, via this door, and also from inside this lock-up run. Now this run is extremely secure. The purpose of this, really the main reason I did that was because I did not initially have a roof on the growing runs. I actually added this, as I explained earlier, a lot later. This is pond netting, and I added that later. So this lock-up run here was done to be extremely secure. It has the heavy netting on the roof, and it is netted underneath the ground. You can't see anymore because the grass has grown over it, but there's netting underneath there as well. Again, that really strong, secure netting. It is made to be completely predator-proof, fox-proof, dog-proof. We don't have bears here, thankfully. It probably wouldn't keep them out. Don't know what would. So it has 2 doors. This was part of an initial design that was kind of changed. So it has a door here and a door here. This is the one I actually use, and this one down here is going to have a use because I'm actually going to block this area off, and turn it into something that will be used for example, a hen with chicks, or, you know, introducing new guinea fowl to the flock, things like that, keeping things very safe for a while, but separate from the other birds, or for breeding. I don't really breed much anymore, but I hatch out a couple of, 1 or 2 lots of chicks every year to get eggs through winter. Now that area there at the top of this lock-up run, you can see it has very dense shade. This is the main shade area that I initially made for the chooks. So this is beautifully shady in summer. They really need a place to get out of the sun, especially in Australia, but really anywhere. Don't know anywhere in the world where they wouldn't want to get out of the summer sun. Then we come to this shed. Oh, this shed was a drama and a half. This shed was meant to be the base of the whole thing, and if I had my time again, as I said, I would move the whole thing down a little bit, because these pieces of tin are here temporarily because of doing that fence. But that's the neighbour's fence there, right there. So it is really close to the neighbour's place, and I would have moved it down closer to the house if I had known then what I know now. But the shed, I think I have some photos of that. Constructing the shed. Oh, that was a drama, because it was not something I could physically do on my own, because it's quite big. It's about 3 by 3 meters or 3 by 2.5. Physically on my own, really difficult. So I actually paid somebody, a guy who I knew from a person who recommended him, who did the roof of my house, fixed leaks on the roof of my house, to just come and help me put it together. So this is the shed of horror and terribleness. The first time it was constructed, it blew away because it hadn't been secured to anything, and was very poorly constructed. The second time, it was put together on a frame. Let's go and have a look. Now, there are baby guinea fowl keats in here at the moment. Hello, guys. This is a nice, snug, secure spot for them. So the bloke who did it for me actually built a frame and put it on that, which made it much, much more secure. The floor of this shed is a mixture of gravel and concrete. And oh boy, that was not a fun job. And you can also see that there's grid underneath there. That was an attempt to keep the rats out. That was just a heavy duty mesh that I put on top as well. The rats are incredible. They're really hard to keep out. You would need a proper hard concrete floor, and I just honestly didn't have the money to do that at that point. Obviously there's spider webs and stuff in here, but it's still a pretty good shed. The chickens have their nesting boxes here. These are just a set of old shelves that somebody was throwing out and asked if I had a use for, and I said, yes, thank you very much. I'll turn them into nesting boxes. The chooks have loved them for, how long has this been here for? 4 years, I guess. They've used them for nesting and brooding, so that's a nice snug spot for them to be. I clean this shed out pretty regularly and use this straw and poo on the veggie gardens, and that's exactly what I used on the most recent planting of autumn veggies. Now, down here we have something else. This is a bit of a I don't know how to feel about this. I had a very big tiger snake in one of the runs of this emporium, sort of early to midsummer. So I moved the chickens out of here, out of this emporium, down to the bottom emporium, and unfortunately it meant that there was a lot of chooks in a smaller space than this. It was too small for the number of chickens that were down there. It's not a small area. I wasn't jamming them in cruelly, and I did let them out to free range, but it wasn't ideal. And they started egg eating. One of the hens had already started doing it anyway, and I didn't get eggs. I didn't get eggs at all because they ate them all. So this was meant to be the solution to that problem. This is a roll-away nest box. And while I'm sure it's very good, it came not assembled. And oh boy, was it a pain to assemble. I'm not even going to go into the stories, but that was not amusing. And it has just sat there unused since I put it in here. And of course, as soon as I moved the chooks up here, the egg eating stopped anyway. So that's the story of that. I will obviously try a bit harder to get them to use it. I have tried. It looks messy because I've tried to put a bit of hay in there, a bit of straw on top, make it look friendly. I've put this old drying airing rack that they sometimes perch on in here up against it, but nothing has particularly enticed them to go inside because they still have their lovely old nest boxes over here, which they're comfortable and familiar with. This here is the door that goes to the outside. That's from the inside. I'm not going to open it because it's kept shut against the wind by that big log there. Don't particularly feel like dragging that around at the moment with the camera in one hand, but this is the inside of it, the actual shed door itself that the shed came with. And so that keeps the wind out in winter. I have meant to go really crazy and insulate this shed, but they don't seem to need it. Perfectly happy. They've got a warm, dry place. It's completely protected from the wind. The only entrance when that other door is shut is this one, and there's a lot of protection. You can see there's trees and shade cloth and stuff protecting it. So this is really quite a snug little spot. So now we're standing in the shed and we're looking out at the lock-up run, and I've planted, as you can see, some wormwood down the bottom there, which is now starting to take shape. And again, work in progress. All these bits of tin are in the process of being tidied up and used for other projects. I got them for the big fence, which as you can see along here, and they just didn't fit. They were too short. Another long story, probably another video, the making of that fence. Okay, so you can get an idea, much better idea from here of the lock-up run. So let's talk about some of the security features of the Emporium. This lock-up run is one. It was the original design for if I want to go away with the kids, which I've almost not done at all. I wound up not really needing it because I put the pond netting on the roof. So security from predators feature number one was using this heavy duty mesh, and as you can see, I use these clip ties, these clips, really close together and overlapped the mesh so that if a predator tries to get in, they're not going to have an easy time of it. Same with the roof of this, it was done the same way. So this roof was put together on the ground and then pulled over these beams. This was not an easy construction task. Yeah, it actually wrecked my shoulders. I had torn rotator cuff after doing this Emporium job. So it came at a bit of a price, but it's certainly been worth it. Well, you know, don't go out and tear your rotator cuff if you can avoid it. It hurts. Now, another little feature that looks just messy now is these rippy strippy strips here. These hail from before I put the netting on the roof. Now other birds can't get in. So that's another security feature, is using heavy duty netting. This is, as I said, pond netting. Using heavy duty netting on the roof. But before I had that, this was to stop magpies and crows going in and stealing the eggs. It did actually work quite well. But now, obviously, with the netting, that's not necessary anymore because birds can't get in. So that's a massive, massive advantage of growing veggies in a setup like this, that birds can't get in and destroy what you are growing. That's actually massive. Little sparrows can get in, and that's fine by me. They tidy up any bits and pieces of grain or whatever, but it means that big birds can't get in. Obviously, it means safety for the chooks, they can do their thing in peace without being eaten by hawks and eagles, which we certainly do get around here. So it's actually quite massive to be able to just move them around. So the annoying invasive boysenberries are being removed at the moment. And it shows you a safety feature which I was going to talk about. The most important safety features of this palace for chickens are the use of heavy duty building materials, so the posts and the heavy duty wire, and the use of good quality netting on the roof. But foxes can dig. I should add that because where I am in Australia, the only predators I'm really trying to keep out are aerial predators, birds, and foxes. Foxes are not the biggest predators, but they're their reputation for cunning is well earned. So you need something with a roof and strong netting on the walls. I actually don't like a loose netting roof. It's actually a really good strategy to keep foxes out because they won't climb on something that's loose and floppy. That makes them feel insecure. But also, if you don't have something nice and sturdy down the bottom, they can just chew through it. This wire, no fox can chew through. Same with dogs, won't even chew through that. But here's another safety feature down the bottom. So this is, at this point around the emporium, I put roofing iron under the ground. I'll insert some pictures, and look, I'm going to give you a potted history that will show you probably a bit of a montage of pictures showing you how I built this place. And the first step was a huge machine came in and dug a massive trench. So a trench was dug where I was going. I think the posts might have been up, and then a large machine came and dug a trench along the bottom of the entire emporium. So it was about, I think it was 70, 80 centimetres wide, close to a metre wide, and it was about a foot deep. So into that trench went, on this side, I had to use roofing iron. So that goes all the way underneath out here to about a metre out, and that will stop foxes from digging. I used the roofing iron because I ran out of the other stuff I had, which the initial up to about this corner, the trench was actually filled with this extremely heavy duty. It's not even netting, it's cyclone mesh. So that goes in under the ground. Yeah, about 70 centimetres, a metre, something like that. Hello, chookies. Hello, chookies. Hello. Ow. So that goes all the way around. And as I said, the shed around here, all these doors, the fasteners are easy and quick to use, but they're sturdy. And when you close the door, it stays closed. And the doors all have netting, or the cyclone, going right up to underneath them, and a solid step underneath them as well. So that cyclone mesh goes all the way up to that shed. And the shed itself is, as I said, based on gravel and concrete, so there's no digging under that either. It's a really important thing to consider if you're housing chooks. I don't know any place in the world that doesn't have any predators. Foxes are pretty widespread. Fortunately, we don't have bears or, cougars or anything like that here. You might need to do it differently if you have big, strong predators like that. But this certainly works here. My main purpose with doing it this way was because I'm not getting any younger. I was 46 when I moved here, and I'm 53 now. So I wanted a system where I would be able to open and close gates and move birds around, where the birds could help me with my work. So, lighten the burden of otherwise having to remove weeds and figure out ways of getting rid of snails and pests and dig. You can see her digging there. They do some of the digging work for me. And I didn't want to be having to drag around a heavy chicken tractor. So in your situation, you may be happy to drag a chicken tractor around, and that may suit you better. But In my situation, however, this works extremely well because once the actual construction work was done, then now it's much, much easier to manage than dragging around a heavy, and it has to be heavy to keep predators out, chicken tractor would have been. Just a wee diversion to have a look at these figs. They're absolutely beautiful at the moment. So I'm really enjoying this tree because having fruit at this time of year, it's sort of mid-autumn now, is really fabulous, and it is still ripening. Okay, we might have a look now at the construction of the Emporium over time. But before I do that, I just wanted to talk quickly about the history of how I came up with this particular setup. It was based on the permaculture stuff, probably going back to 80s, 90s. There's a system called a mandala chicken system. Again, it's just a system of runs, but it's based on a circle instead of a rectangular sort of plan. And the idea is that you have a chicken house in the middle, and then you have runs radiating out like the spokes of a wheel. That again is so that you can open and close runs and use the system to grow veggies and to have chickens to do some of the work for you. So, you know, that idea is certainly not new. But I really didn't want to do a circular system, mainly because the construction would have been really complicated. And this was hard enough. This was a 2-year project. It took 2 years to build this. So this was quite hard enough, and I didn't want to complicate it by trying to do a circle. So that's why I came up with this system. It took a bit of thinking through. Initially, it was just going to be the shed and 4 runs, and then I put the extra run on the top as a lock-up thing, so I had something really secure in case I went away with the kids. And then I added the system of the communal space in the middle, and the doors, and the way I designed the whole thing. That did take a while. So it was a good year after I moved here that building started on this. And I think it was 3 years after, I think it was finally finished in 2019, 2020, might have been 2019. So it took a long time. It took 2 years from starting to build it to finishing. So a huge project, but now makes life a lot easier. The other thing I added was these, this was attached to that, and that's why it's been damaged. This is heavy duty, good quality, 50% shade cloth, horticultural shade cloth, bought from a horticultural supplier. And I had to, again, modify things a bit and put in these arches. These are 6 metre long panels of solid steel mesh that is made to make designed to make temporary yards for sheep, for handling sheep. And I have used some of those up in the sheep yards as well, which you can see if you have a look at my shearing video. But they make excellent arches, really, really quick way of putting in an arch to support a shade cloth roof like this. I obviously need to get some more arches because it kind of does sag in the middle. But, you know, that's an ongoing thing. This shade cloth makes a massive difference. It cuts out 50% of the sun in summer. And when it's cooler, it actually creates a much more stable microclimate where things are growing. And as you can see, plants really like it. Of course, the arches have multiple uses. You wouldn't just have a nice arch and not use it to grow something up, would you? So I have little snow peas starting to grow there, and hopefully they will use the arches as a support. And over summer, I use the arches to grow beans, cucumbers, anything else that likes to trellis. So they're a nice trellis as well. The other thing I've used these 6-metre sheet mesh panels for is constructing this polytunnel. The polytunnel was definitely an afterthought. That was never part of the original design any more than the roof was or the shade cloth. Those were responses to needs of particular of weather conditions and things like that. I do like to let the cats in here too, because I have had rats in here and the cats soon see to them. Hey Jude. Hi buddy. Hi Judy. You're a good boy. You're going to sketch them. You're going to sketch those rats. Good boy. So the construction of this polytunnel is very simple, and I'm planning on putting one more on the end of the other run. Well, let's go into the purpose of it first. The purpose is just as a season extender, because it gets cold very quickly here, and while we can get some extreme heat in summer into the 40s, we also get long, cold, wet winters, and things like eggplants and capsicums and stuff like that really needs a little bit more time to fruit and mature and ripen. So this polytunnel is perfect for that. It's perfect season extender. The other thing it does, and I have tried several iterations of it. I was growing stuff directly into the soil here, but that didn't work too well. Not sure why, it just wasn't great. So now I'm getting a lineup of these big pots, and I'm just going to plant things into the pots instead. So yeah, first cab off the rank is this guy, who is nearing the end of its cycle, but look at that. Aha, first eggplant. First eggplant. Now this looks appalling. It does look appalling, but this is a compost tea. It has got a bit of chook poo in there, this one, but the green floating on the top is comfrey leaves. Hello, it's very interesting, isn't it? Good boy. Yeah, good boy. So that's a compost tea. I've discovered that the very best way of keeping my plants looked after and watered is to have fertilizer, compost, everything I need, water. It's nice, isn't it? A bucket with and a bucket for water, so that as things need looking after, I can just grab it where it is. So I have those things wherever I grow plants. I'll have one of those, whatever fertilizer I'm using. That's a natural fertilizer there. It's just liquid compost, liquid fish emulsion, and liquid seaweed. So I use that. That guy there is a baby date palm, and these have just self-seeded around the place. So if you want a date palm, just chuck your seeds, date seeds, in the compost and see what happens. And the other reason, of course, for having this is because I can then get fruit in winter from these beautiful guys here. I'm going to chop this down. It's overgrown and it's gone mental, and I can't really get to the sides here anymore, and it's not letting in much light. So this Cape gooseberry, this is, of course, beautiful plant. I'm just going to chop it down and it will grow straight back. It is an extremely vigorous plant. So I'll chop that down, and it should start producing fruit again very, very soon. So I get fruit over winter, in fact all year, from this vine, because it's in here just enough to protect it from the frost. And the construction of this was very simple. You can see it's just 3 of these long sheet mesh panels in an arch. That's really all it is. With this is reused greenhouse plastic from a greenhouse that was pulled down, and a friend had the plastic and very kindly shared that with me. I can do a whole video on constructing this when I make my second one, but I just used that as a base for the frame, and then just dropped a couple of pieces of wood, another piece of wood on the ground, and that's really all it is to make the doorways. That's really all it is. And then there's the front door there. I may actually put plastic on these doors as well, some of that same greenhouse plastic, to create a snug spot in winter, because it does get pretty cold in the middle of winter, and if I'm trying to keep things like eggplants and capsicums going through winter, I will need more warmth than is allowed by these open doorways. So I'll probably just use a sheet of drop down plastic on that. On the top of this polytunnel, I have 2 layers of shade cloth because the sun, it would cook everything in here over summer. So I pull these over in spring. I start with this one. This is just 50%. And then when it starts getting hotter, I'll pull this one over as well. I think this is 70%. So between them, that's pretty good. And there's still plenty of light and heat getting in there to grow everything in the tunnel in there. It's definitely time to take those off. We did have a warmer weekend. Oh, was it last weekend? There was a couple of days in the mid-20s. So I hadn't taken it off yet because that can heat up a polytunnel pretty quickly. But they're going to come off now. I just unhook them over here, just over there, and then just pull them to the side and just curl them up in the side there, and then just pull it back over next summer. So easy peasy lemon squeezy. I find the trick with looking after things well is to have things where you need them. So have the shade cloth where you need it. Be able to just roll it out or roll it back. Have the fertilizer or the liquid compost tea, the water, whatever you need, where the plants are. Then you don't have to go and get it, and then you will look after them. This is note to self, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this. So that's the Emporium in its glory at the moment. It is a work in progress, like everything here, and it will, it has changed a lot. It has changed a lot in the time that I've had it, and it will change more, I'm absolutely sure, as I evolve using it, and as problems come up. And my favourite permaculture principle is to find the solution in the problem, which is, what led me to create the polytunnel, what led me to put up the shade cloth, and those things have been absolute bonuses. I've been really glad I did those. And lastly, how you might adapt this to your needs. I'm completely aware that not everybody has the space to build something on this scale. But you can very easily adapt it to something that can fit even in a fairly small area. You don't need 4 huge runs. You don't need a big shed. You just need an area that's safe for the chickens, and even just 2 runs. 2 is enough. You can use 1 for summer and 1 for winter. You can make it as big or as small as you want. You could also make temporary runs. You could have an area that suits your chooks and your space, and within that you could divide it temporarily. You could use bird netting. You could use the kind of, get the kind of netting I have and just put it up with temporary stakes. There's all sorts of different ways of doing it, of like the chicken wire, the chicken mesh that I use, or even if it's inside your run, your safe area for the chickens, it doesn't need to be particularly heavy duty. If it's just dividing it into separate spaces, there's lots and lots of different ways of keeping chickens away from plants when you don't want them with them, and letting them in when you do. So the basic principle, and also of course if it suits you to use chicken tractors instead, it's doing the same thing in a different way. Just for me, I wanted to put the work in early and then not have to do any more, not have to drag around a chicken tractor every day, because that just doesn't suit my needs. I should add too that the reason I put the Emporium on the hill was because, and put the shed right up at the top, was to make it easier for myself to get the dirty straw. And as things migrate down, as the compost and stuff migrates down, it'll migrate down the hill into the growing areas. That was my plan. Of course, you first have to take the stuff up the hill, and I didn't consider that so well. Anyway, one thing to consider, there's a lot of things to consider. Consider the lay of your land before you build something like that as well. So now let's have a look at the construction of the Emporium. Let's go back and have a look at some old footage and some old photos and give you an overview of how it was actually built. Okay, bit of an emotional moment. My Chicken Emporium is finished. This has been an extremely long time in making and planning, and literally blood, sweat and tears. There's a guinea fowl flying over. So much blood, sweat and tears. Thank you so much, friends, for going through this journey with me. You could see probably in the piece of footage where I had just finished the Emporium what an emotional journey that was. It's just been huge. My whole journey out here, my last 7 years, has been just undescribable. It's been so hard, but I've achieved some pretty cool things, and looking back on that did kind of make me emotional because it was a huge achievement, and it is a huge thing to be able to use now. But I hope it also gave you some ideas and some inspiration for ways that you could use a similar kind of idea yourselves. I'm not saying everybody should build a 20 metre by 18 metre chicken emporium, but you can certainly use the idea. You can build something smaller, you can build something in a different shape, you can build it with more movable interior, dividers. There's lots of ways of making it work for you. Or you can build it to be, mobile. You can use mobile chicken fencing and do something similar as well. So there's lots of ways that people can use a similar sort of idea. Anyway, I'm so grateful you all hung out for this long. I know this is a really long one, and I'm also aware that it's been quite a while since I've uploaded a video, and this is why, because this has taken a really long time. The main thing that took so long was finding all the old pictures and the old footage and organising it and trying to figure out what time everything happened. Things did happen before 2020. I was building this in 2019, and some of the timeline, there was an awful lot going on. So some of the timeline is a little confused in my mind, but I've put it all in order as best I can. So thank you all so much. I really love all your comments and all your support. I'm really loving doing this channel, and it's the lovely people who make it worth doing. So thank you so much. Feel free to pop a comment down below if you like to do it. That would be absolutely fabulous. Thank you. And if you can subscribe and give this video a like, that would help me so much. All right. Thank you all so much for joining me on this long, long journey. I hope it was interesting and you learned something. Thank you so much, everyone. So it's hooroo from me. Hooroo. And it's hooroo from. Thank you all.